Good evening. It is 5:15 this Monday, June 27th, and the Carroll City Council is now in session. Would you all please rise and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, all are present. We have a rather lengthy consent agenda because we have a lengthy regular agenda, and I will just read these items off in their order. The first would be an approval of minutes of both the June 10th and 13th meetings. We have approval of bills and claims. Licenses and permits, there are none. A resolution approving an engagement agreement with Allers and Cooney for the 7th Street amended and restated urban renewal plan for the Hoyt Mansion development agreement with Brian and Holly Wendell, Jason and Karen Atherton. We also have a Tyler Technologies agreement resolution for electronic payments. We also have a preliminary and final plat for the Goody First Subdivision, City of Carroll. We also have, under the street maintenance facility, change order number 3. And that is tonight's consent agenda. I'm sorry.
Just keep going now.
Oh, I'm sorry. There is 2 more. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was Public Works Department cold planer purchase, and then also report of bid opening from the Parks Department roof maintenance projects. I'm sorry. So again, there's items A through I. Does anybody have any questions about tonight's consent agenda? Hearing none, I would seek a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Schreck,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Base,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Bordenaro.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Item number 4 on tonight's agenda is oral requests and communications from the audience. This is members of the public can speak and address the city council on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Are there any tonight? I see none. How about online?
No.
None? Okay, so there are no oral requests. Item number 5 is approval and appointment of Daniel Honish as Carroll Fire Chief, and I'll turn that over to Mike.
Thank you, Mark and Council. In anticipation of Fire Chief Greg Schreck's pending retirement on July 22nd, the city began work over a year ago to review and decide on how they were going to proceed with the position, and ultimately it was decided by the city to move to a full-time fire chief role. The city had 3 finalists that were selected for interviews. We had 2 internal candidates, 1 external candidate, and we really had great candidates. I think that speaks very highly of the fire department and the volunteers we have that serve the great community of Carroll. We had 22 individuals that did serve as a review panel, and the council and city on Friday, June 10th, held interviews with all of the candidates. And like I said, this included members of the volunteer fire department, the Civil Service Commission, the city's leadership team, and the city council themselves. Dan Honish, with 30 years of experience with the Carroll Fire Department and currently serving as the Assistant Carroll Fire Chief, was ultimately extended a job offer for the position on Friday, June 10th, and Mr. Honish did accept the position on June 13th. So it is with great enthusiasm that I am respectfully recommending to the mayor and city council the appointment of Carroll Assistant Fire Chief Dan Honish as the new City of Carroll Fire Chief. And I would say that, Dan will provide outstanding leadership that was pretty clear and evident through the interview process, and I'm just really excited to work with him in his appointment. So that's our recommendation. So thank you.
Do you just need a simple motion for that?
Correct.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second for approval of the appointment of Dan Honish as Carroll's new fire chief. And I would add my congratulations and welcome aboard to that, Dan. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shrek?
Yes.
Bordenero?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Great. Thank you. Welcome again, Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we have no ordinances tonight. And then under resolutions, item number 7, we'll start with the professional services agreement, JEO Consulting Group, a golf course well improvements project. And Chad, I turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Carroll Municipal Golf Course has had issues with properly irrigating the course since the mid-2010s. The current pump was installed in 2002, or pump house, excuse me, and has since developed issues with the ground the building sits on, as well as the building structure itself. The ground around the building has continued to settle, altering the base of the building, and has allowed the subfloor to sink, damaging brackets to hold pump and irrigation structure above the wet well. An additional scope to this project will help give us an option, or give us options in creating optimum and efficient irrigation rates, which could include a new water supply well, replacement of pumps, and new VFD and electrical upgrades. Services for this project will include a pre-designed concept phase that will provide various options to the city and opinions of cost. Staff recommendation is for the city council consideration and approval of the resolution approving the professional services agreement with JEO Consulting Group for the golf course well improvements project for a lump sum fee of $7,500.
Thank you, Chad. Nothing else to add? Okay, very good. Well, we heard the scope of the project, and the recommendation is for consideration and approval of said resolution with JEO. Is there a motion to that effect? Or any questions for Chad? I'd seek a...
Moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second, please? We have a motion and a second. Yeah, Tom, yes. Yep, very good. Once again, so there's a motion and a second for approval of a resolution approving the professional services agreement with JEO Consulting for the golf course well improvements for a lump sum fee of $7,500. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks?
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Bordenero?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
All aye. Motion carried.
Very good, thank you. Item 7B for resolutions is Corridor of Commerce Downtown Streetscape Phase 11. And Randy, please.
Thank you, Mayor. On June 13th, Jim Host with Confluence presented information to you on the Corridor of Commerce Downtown Streetscape Phase 11. You'll recall that Phase 11 is along Highway 30 from Highway 71 to West Street and Clark Street to Grant Road. It is the last planned phase of the original 2003 Corridor of Commerce Master Plan. Confluence is currently under contract with the city to provide design services for the development of that Phase 11 project. The work on the design work on the project has been initiated, but it is currently suspended pending your review. In order to assist in your review, a resolution has been included in your packet that terminates the design contract or initiates termination of the design contract. The failure of passage of that or no action on it would continue the current design contract because it was approved and is approved by resolution. Now, approval of this attached resolution would initiate that contract termination under the terms of that agreement. So at this point, we'd recommend that you consider and provide direction to staff on that Phase 11 project.
Very good.
Okay.
Any questions for Randy?
No, but I just would like to mention that on June 13th, I asked you how far along they had gone in the design work, how much of the total, which is $119,000, they had completed and they were into this, to this point for $30,000. Did I get that
Approximately.
right? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And am I correct that, at least according to the budget, we had budgeted $25,000 for fiscal year '23?
Correct,
Okay.
but there's also around 60,000 that's in fiscal year '22
Okay.
in there, so that's how you would
Okay,
come up with that total.
perfect. Okay, well, the recommendation, again, the request is for consideration for it, and I'd like to know what the council's wishes are.
I haven't changed my mind. I think this, unlike some of the other phases, is about safety and mobility, the sidewalks, the lighting. And so I just see that in these areas that Randy just explained the location for, that it makes sense in these areas as we're entering from both sides, on both sides of the city. And this isn't a lot of fluff. The lighting is simpler and will be effective as far as creating safe areas in these spots. And I think we've gone this far, and we might as well finish it up and complete the projects.
Perfect, thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I would second that. I'm along with that. I've heard a lot of conversation. I said this at the last meeting. A lot of conversation from a lot of people who run businesses along that section of roadway that want it completed and want it finished. They need the lighting. They're asking me why we're not getting the lighting, why we're not getting things finished up so that we look complete out to certain edges. Safety.
Thank you.
We've had a lot of people sleeping in certain places in town in those areas, and so we need to light it better.
Anyone else? So, any further comments, further questions? None? Is there a motion to that effect? Well, we don't need a motion if it's just going to continue then, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So there's no motion to terminate is what I'm saying, so.
So,
Okay.
and that being the case, staff will continue to work with Confluence, and at some point, there'll be neighborhood meetings like we discussed at the last meeting, and then there'll be plans and specifications developed, and they'll be presented at a later date to council for consideration on some type of action. So I think
Well, we
that
gotta
makes
wait till
sense.
January anyway to have the money to actually do the project in our budget.
That's part of it, yes.
And again, it's tax increment financing, which will enhance the area, add to the property values, build our tax base. To me, it's very logical to proceed for those reasons also.
I'm very concerned and I said at the last meeting as well, I don't know why there's only two of us up here speaking. I guess I would like to know if there's anybody else, what your thoughts and opinions are on what this is, because four of you didn't say much at the last meeting. So I really am interested. Oh, yeah, that's right, you weren't here. So I'm just, because, I mean, this is a big project.
I'm being quiet because I'm for going forward, and I don't want
Okay.
to voice my opinion to stop it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I expressed my concerns last time about sidewalks on both sides of the highway.
Okay,
I didn't feel that that was needed. I felt that it could affect some businesses.
Sure.
Some entry points in and out. So that would be my biggest holdback on this, or make sure that those businesses have some say-so in that, so.
okay.
Is there a budget on this?
Yeah,
Is there an
about
expected
1.5 roughly.
price that we're gonna spend on
Yeah.
this 11?
1.6
1.6, okay.
at this point. That's very preliminary. But it'll be identified as the plans are prepared. You know, whether, once again, the type of lighting, the location of sidewalks, the amount of impact or need for work on adjacent property entrances, it all adds into the cost that are unidentified at this point.
So at this point, it comes in and we keep continuing, it comes in over budget, way over budget, what do you do? Say
Well,
no at that time and spend all the money right now, and then,
there's a decision to be made at that time. This, actually, preparation of plans really gives you the information to make that big decision on construction. That's what part of the reason plans are prepared and brought to you prior to the time they go out to bid, that your final approval on moving forward with these projects. So that's really why we go through this design exercise, is to generate that information in as best we can. I mean, sometimes bids are well over what we expect, and we've experienced that certainly. And historically, sometimes bids are under what, but
We're not gonna put this out for bid before we do our January budget, are we?
no, this
No,
is
this
a
is just to get to that point.
2020, this is a 2023 project.
Right.
And I would even add, I mean, to your concern, Kyle, on, where do we put sidewalks? I mean, part of the process of the plan development is to have those neighborhood meetings that was specifically in this contract. And those will be items that can be discussed and considered on how we impact or don't impact particular property owners. So that's part of the design process.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so it appears as though we're going to continue to move forward with no termination and full speed ahead.
Will do.
All right, very good. Item 7C is the Carroll Recreation Center Building Improvement Project. And once again, Chad.
I'll speak on some of the project scope and bid pricing, and then I'll hand it back over to Mike, who's going to talk some other financial information. On June 16th, we received the bids from only one bidder for the Carroll Recreation Center Building Improvements Project 2021. The bid received was from Beatty Construction. The bid amount are as follows: base bid $3,387,500. Alternate 1 at $2,805,200. Alternate 2 at $72,600, and alternate 3 at $308,500, with a full project coming in at $6,573,800, and that's construction cost. Project scopes include base bid, which are locker rooms, demolition and reconstruction, HVAC unit upgrades, including new air handling units for the gym, guard room, wet classroom construction, new control room, operator room, and check-in desk. Add alternate 1 includes a raised walking track, elevator, staircase, 2 upstairs, HVAC for the indoor aquatic center, new natural lighting and improved lighting for the track area, and expansion of the sports storage area on the north side of the building. I will make note that the indoor pools HVAC will be needing replaced in the next 3 to 5 years as well. Alternate 2 included an ADA accessible ramp for the track area to the upper mezzanine. Add alternate 3 was from the previous bidding process, would be the west classrooms remodel, would include a first project, or in the first project plan, removal of the exterior walls, new flooring, and open room concept with partition walls. Funding options have not changed since the first bidding, with total current funding at $7,627,000 from multiple sources included in your memo. Possible options can include base bid only, which is estimated at $4,619,825 for total project cost, to the full project, which is $7,681,795, which is short of current funding, but within the council's authority to issue additional lost debt. Base bid plus any alternate options are wide open and listed below on your memo. And any assortment of add alternates ranging from 4.619,825 to 7,605,605 for estimated total project costs. These are also still provided in your memo. Mike, would you like to discuss?
Yeah, and just a few items. So, you know, as the council's aware through previous actions of the council, that you can issue up to 7.6 million in geo loss bonds for this project. Now, to fund this project right now, in the budget, there is $1,307,000 in cash on hand. Now, it's a combination of local option sales tax funds, hotel motel. Some of it was set aside specifically for this project. Some was set aside for HVAC that we have now rolled up and moved into this project. Additionally, there's $700,000 that's planned to be issued through a geo debt issuance for the project. And part of the reason for that is it's a lower interest rate that we can obtain for those dollars. So the remaining would go through a geo loss bond to fund this project. So base bid only, with the cash on hand, we'd be looking at a geo issuance of $2,333,180. That would result in an annual payment of a maximum of $185,998. And I would say that came from Susan Gerlach of PFM Financial today. If you do, that would be just the base bid. Now, if you would do base bid plus alternate one, that would be $5,275,640 in geo bond indebtedness. That annual payment would be, on the high side, would be $406,634,000 annually. And then if you did the full project, that would result in a needed geo issuance of $5,675,795, and that would be an annual payment of $436,753. Now, if Deb, you would click on my computer, the mayor right, please.
Can you repeat the first?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you the same
Ba-
thing.
Base bid,
What was the first thing you said?
The option one base bid, geo issuance would be needed, that would be $2,330,180 for geo issuance. It'd be an annual payment on the high side of $185,998.
Okay.
So what we did was we took those three options and then ran them through our local option sales tax collections. This should be familiar for councils. This is what we review through our budgeting process. And you can see we've added the rec center debt payments in this line through here. And then it results, you can see our carryover balance. We continue to have positive cash flow in that and would have sufficient. Now, this is just the base option one. Now, if I put the base plus alternate one, you can see that increases this line item here, and then shows those annual debt payments. And then you can see our carryover balance, still sufficient room to take on the project in that scope. And then full project, so this would be the worst case scenario, again, does increase that debt payment annually. But again, you can see we do have sufficient room in there. And that's also assuming we continue to do our normal road maintenance projects the council has prioritized historically, also some trail projects on an annual basis, and then all the other normal tax relief that we do through local option sales tax. I would note these numbers from Suzanne do reflect a projected interest rate of 4.09%. Now, that is an increase from what we looked at back in January, February. As we know, interest rates are going up. We were estimating earlier this year of 2.49. So it just tells you how much the interest rates have went up. And she has added some basis points to account for some anticipated increase through the Federal Reserve that are anticipated in July and August. So she does believe that it's a conservative number at this point. But certainly the markets will dictate ultimately what interest rates. If the council would select an option, we would trigger with Suzanne as early as tomorrow the process of issuing that debt, just so we can get a rate locked in. And that would be a debt issuance as early as September 20th. And that's assuming you guys say we're going to go forward with a project, select a resolution. we would begin that process to issue that debt. Any questions on that information from
Yeah,
Suzanne
a
today?
while back Laura said our local option sales tax is gonna be increased from last year. Have you heard anything? It's about that time of year we usually hear from them.
No, we get that information in September, October timeframe, so we have not received that yet. You can see here, historically, like in fiscal year 2020, we received 1.7 million. In 2021, we received 1.9 million. And in 2022, we actually were 2 million. We always conservatively budget, so we're projecting 1.9 million in that for collection and moving that out. But historically, we've always seen annual increase. I think there's been, in the almost 20 years we've been collecting, I think there's been 1 year we actually seen a decline in local option sales tax collections, but then the next year it actually rebounded and was up.
Well, now that things that are ordered are in line, we get collection from.
Correct.
So that makes it more solid than, you
Yeah.
know, you lose businesses or so.
Mike, one more time, what was the term on that payback period? I'm sorry.
These are 20-year
20-year,
debt
okay.
issuances, yes. Good question. I don't think I said that. so-
Well, I missed it, just as easy.
Well, we all know we have to do something with the heating and air conditioning in the locker rooms. It's pretty well decided. And, you know, the walking track has been the number one thing that people want. I guess I'm willing to make a motion to do the base bid in alternate one.
I'll second that.
I have a question. I'm sorry. What, confirm for me again, what is base bid and alternate one? Because I
Alternate.
was heading to alternate 1 and 2. So,
Alternate,
Go ahead.
alternate one is the raised walking track, elevator, and stairs. Estimated cost of
Oh, there we go.
2.2 million. And then alternate two is the ramp from a raised walking track.
so is there a reason why we wouldn't want to get in alternate 2 in there too for just that little bit additional? And, I mean, the one thing you didn't talk about was, we didn't, well, I mean, I guess we did get that pricing on just base plus 1, but you're not talking about a whole lot more money. You didn't even give us a pricing for base bid, alternate 1 and 2. We just talked about as far as monthly payments go, or annual payments, so.
Being those small amounts,
Yeah.
we didn't ask Suzanne to keep running different scenarios. I mean, 72,600, a 20-year issuance, you're going to be talking about probably with interest, probably about $4,000 a year in additional cost, approximately.
I guess I'm just wondering why why would we not want to just get in 1 and 2? I understand not doing 3, but what would be your reasoning, I guess, Laverne, or?
I'm not real sure if you need alternate two. You know, if you look at it, it takes away what you can do in the upstairs. That's gonna be in the way. And then it's gonna conflict with the heating and air conditioning area up there also.
I guess I didn't
Was there
understand that.
any, sorry,
So I mean, what the add alternate number 2 does is it adds a ramp from the raised walking track to the upper level of the mezzanine.
Right.
The way we operate the upper level of mezzanine, it's not required because anything we put on the mezzanine level, we actually put a duplicate piece of equipment on the lower level.
I understand that.
I do think, and I know you and I had a conversation today, it does take away some space on the mezzanine level. So I know that is concerned. I mean, obviously, we don't have a lot of space already on the mezzanine level. So I mean, it's a balancing act for the council to make that decision if they want to.
I mean, I would ask how much space? Like, what are you gonna lose?
I was gonna say, do you have any drawings?
I'm gonna see what I can pull.
And my
I get
only,
that.
my only
You're
question
fine.
then is, because if you don't do that, then you're asking people to go down the elevator to go back in the weight room to go back to the second level mezzanine.
There'll still be a connection.
There's stairs in the weight room too.
Yeah.
And then you'll connect around to the northeast corner into the walking track of the weight room.
But it's stairs, it's not a ramp. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I personally think that we are shortchanging the taxpayers and members by not including all three. All three add value to memberships. And I remember having the discussion about the multipurpose room and how it would add value to memberships, because this room is preventing the rec center from being utilized, offering the size of classes they want, the variety of classes people want, and also by opening it up. I remember Jack mentioning that you would have a large room that you could rent out for parties, et cetera, and generate revenue. But I see all three as very important to adding value to people's memberships. And if we were to do something down the road, we saw what happened to the original bid alternate was $245,000 for the West multipurpose room. And it is a multipurpose room. Jack mentioned he could do things with that room that he is unable to do now, and that he believes it would help with our memberships, which is something we've talked about for decades. So given that inflation is the new normal and getting the construction done all at once instead of disrupting and doing it piecemeal, I firmly believe we need all three. They serve different populations. And Laverne, yes, the questionnaire that was put together, the citizen survey, the number one request for programming was the raised running track. But the second largest was more programming for physical fitness, and that's what the multipurpose room is all about. So, and that was 45% of those who answered the questionnaire said is strongly needed, and 39% said moderately needed. Those were the two biggest outcomes in this questionnaire, the top two requests, and what they would like to see as far as programming needs in the rec center. I think anytime we can do something and reinvent those cramped rooms, and I'm still getting complaints about that. We've lost instructors. That room needs to be opened up. It needs to find new uses. That room is almost 50 years old. I mean, this rec center was built in '77, and people have new ideas about how they want to stay fit, and we need to cater to all ages, all I don't know, activities that people are interested in. So I think this was scaled back in the gym, scaled back the running track, and so I think these are needed if we want to remain viable to our population, all interests, all ages. I'm for all of them, all three, and we have the money, and we will not it does not raise taxes. This project never did.
Chad, can you confirm, I mean, are those classrooms, both of them, in use basically all the time?
I wouldn't say all the time. Obviously, for our instructors, they're running 10 classes a week through the east-west room. The other side, which is more of a meeting space, is used quite a bit. That one generally doesn't get rented other than theater or some of our meetings. Every once in a while it does for parties. It does have a small kitchen space in it. Not as much as the activities room on the other side, or the craft room. No, activities room. That's the one that's mainly utilized for parties.
Are we having problems with that, the classroom that I know is used for exercising being cramped and full?
We had ran into some issues with that. It's not with every class that we have, but we have a couple that are at capacity.
And there's really no place else for them to teach those classes.
Unless we were to go to the gym, but the only reason for being in the, not going to the gym is there's no AC. And
And, I mean, even with the, yeah, I mean, I just, there's nowhere else to teach those classes. I mean, it is a good point. I understand what you're saying, Carolyn. I would want to make sure that they're truly programming for additional things. Like, you know, that you guys would really be ramping up for what other things have you talked about being able to provide in those rooms, just so the public knows.
yeah, sure. So we've had multiple discussions on trying to get, you know, some just different classes. You know, we talked about some more boot camp style classes. We've talked about increasing our yoga classes, which I don't even think we have right now, just due to lack of instructor at the moment. You know, there are a variety of classes that we would love to have, but what also comes down to that is the lack of instructors. You know, that's a concern with that as well.
Then I would have to ask, do you think you're gonna find instructors? I mean, because we can redo this space, but are you gonna find instructors?
It's either going to take staff to go and get certified
Right.
in some of those specialized classes, or happen to come across somebody that's willing to get those certifications and put them to use.
Well, and a part of attracting instructors is having the space in which to do your classes correctly. And to attract people that want to be in a hospitable environment when they're working out. I'm still hearing from people, the women that take the fitness, cycling, the spinning, and so on. And I have heard people tell me that they would like to have some yoga offerings. So, I mean, it's opening up potential. And like I said, it's multi-purpose and it could serve many needs.
How many classes are done a day in there, Chad?
Morning, we have 2, early class and a little bit later. We do have a noon class that is back, and then 1 after work. At least 1 after work.
You want to go over?
I was just gonna go over this real quick. You had asked about access. So, under the bid that would add the raised walking track, on the north side of the mezzanine level, there would be stairs up to and connect into the raised walking track. Down here on the south side is where the stairs will bring you from the first floor up to the raised walking track, and there's actually an elevator that makes that ADA acceptable. Under alternate number 2, we add on the south side of the mezzanine a ramp that then comes down to the mezzanine level. So you do take out some of the space, probably about 2 pieces of equipment here. You also take out some of the back circulation areas, so you do make this a little bit more difficult to use and impact that. Now remember, anything we put on the second floor today of the mezzanine, we put duplicate equipment on the first floor so that it's fully accessible from that perspective.
Yeah, I know, it's just that I have been in there so many times when everything is full on the first floor. And so if you have someone come in that can't use what's on the first floor, they can't get to what's on the second floor then. I mean, and so how do you kindly ask people, you know, if you're not disabled or in a wheelchair, go upstairs? I'm just saying it would just be nice to be able to let people use everything on all levels. I mean, if we're gonna do it, why wouldn't we want that? Try to touch it.
Are you wanting?
I mean,
No, not so far.
I think she's just trying to see the, either right, maybe right there.
Well, right now, we have a motion, and a second.
We still have a motion and a second, but we were in still the discussion phase, so.
I want to ask you, Mr. Lawyer, if we have motion and second, we vote on that. Can you then bring up alternate 3?
Yes.
As a separate, if one and two passes, or the base bid and one passes, can you have another vote for alternate two and another vote for alternate three?
I would say no.
I don't know, I'm asking.
Can you say that again? What did you just
If,
ask?
if my motion,
Three different
if my motion, you take my motion and vote on it, and it passes, okay? So then can you bring up another motion for alternate two for the ramp? And then another motion for alternate three for the room, and vote on each one of those?
Separately.
Mm-hmm.
Would you need a second resolution then if also? So resolution one and then a resolution two?
Probably would. You need 3 resolutions.
So is there just no way to go back and say that you want to, I mean, if we just really didn't have time to discuss and you want to take back your first?
Well, I've already
That's
made
what
the
I'm
motion, we
asking.
have to vote on that. It was
You
second.
can't
You
rescind.
can
it.
rescind.
I think that's what I'm
Rescind.
asking, to make it a little bit easier. I just wanted to make sure I knew where you were coming from, Laverne.
Yeah. I'm not real sure I want the ramp. So that's why I wouldn't vote for that. That's why I'd want that as a separate vote.
So, I mean, I'll just throw this out for sake of discussion point. I mean, you certainly could rescind your motion and then in motion form, not resolution form, go through each one of the different alternatives, the base bid and the alternatives. And then at the end, do a single resolution on whatever project gets.
I'm not sure I got it.
This is a new one.
Develop a consensus.
Yes, develop a
Before the
consensus.
resolution?
Yeah, before the resolution, let's figure out what you want in it, and then we can do a resolution.
I guess I would just like to know, I mean, I'm still in discussion phase here, but just looking at these dollar figures, there's not that much difference. And initially coming in here, I was stuck on base bid with 1 and 2. I thought, you could wait on 3. We can do that later, but you're not talking about that much more. And let's be honest, in the time frame since we've last talked, January, February till now, we're already back up from 249 to 409. And why do you want to sell yourself short? It's gonna come in extremely expensive to do the next piece. I mean, she's absolutely correct. And the lost stuff is showing you that we're healthy. Why would we not want to do this project and make it right for everybody in Carroll? I mean, we're not causing any harm from what I can see with, our taxes and our, what do you call it, where we're sitting with the,
Fund balances.
yeah, and with,
Right.
what we're charging.
And looking at the
Our citizens.
laws that I hadn't seen before, we aren't giving up anything else. We can still do the debt, service the debt, the 25%. We are healthy, we are able to do this. And I think and I just believe anytime you can give people access, the ramp, I understand what you're saying, Laverne. I just think we don't want to prevent anyone from not having access to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
We do have too many crappy months in the state of Iowa. We don't get a lot of nice weather to be outside. I mean,
It's true.
There's no ARPA funds in this at all.
No.
So if we used ARPA funds for alternate 3, that would make your payment still at 406 instead of 436.
You could do that, yes.
And you have,
Would that be all your ARPA funds?
no.
no, it's 1.4 million.
Yeah.
We're gonna use, what, 300? What is it?
275?
385.
308 of the 1.4 million.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And if you want to attach the others, then you'd have to ask if you want to do the other 75 for the ramp. I would not want to get the payments over 406. I'd use ARPA funds for the other alternate 2 and 3. And use the formula here for base bid and alternate 1. There's my 2 cents.
Well, and I think you have to think long-term. That is not a huge investment when you think that we are keeping the rec center viable and preparing it for the future. Alternate 3 is 4% of the total cost of the
I get that,
entire project.
I just don't want to put it into the form, I'd rather use ARPA funds for
Well,
it.
I'm just arguing that all 3 need to get done. They all have their own, stand on their own merits. And the public wants these things, these amenities to be offered.
You know, I'm learning as I'm going, and a lot of my role is to, try and find consensus among the council. And we've got 6 individuals, 6, philosophies, 6, independent points of view, and none of them are wrong, just like all of them aren't right. But I just find it, incredibly challenging to what I'm hearing as we go up and down the line. The one thing we do agree on is we need to do something, okay? And the something would be the base bid, okay? I mean, again, we all agree that that needs to be done. And then where it gets beyond that is where it gets rather gray, and we've got to find some way of coming together for a consensus here. Something that we can all live with and answer to our constituents about. And again, there's no black or white here. There's no right or wrong, except for the fact that we let it fail altogether, and then that would be wrong. So I think, what perhaps Laverne's motion was a bit of an extension of what we learned a little bit in March, is that there was a bit of a consensus, at least somewhere, to move it off of dead center from being base or all to something that would be a little bit more palatable. And now we're finding, disagreement in what's going to be palatable. So, I'm not going to make a recommendation here, how I feel, because I don't necessarily get to vote. But we don't want to let another opportunity pass by to get that air conditioning fixed and those locker rooms fixed. And then beyond that, what can we find consensus and all be in agreement with and live with? And if it means piecemealing it down the road or something like that, that's a consideration. But tonight's decision has to be made with moving forward with something. And that's all I've got to say about it.
Piecemealing is a consideration. I would agree with you on that, but it will be a pricier one.
Correct.
So
Yep.
I'll throw that out there.
Prices
So,
aren't
I mean,
going
Very
down.
let's just-
evident that, yeah, inflation, again, we're confronted with that challenge.
Yep.
so.
And that's why again, we need to jump in and offer these amenities to the members to add value to those memberships and to attract new members and not lose the ones we have.
I don't think the ones you have are gonna quit just because they don't get a walking track. I think you're looking at some of the budgets right now where you look at the expenses that are going out at gas at a 60% increase across the whole city. That's gonna eat up a budget this year that we've set on, and we're not thinking about that. I think we're all sitting here in this room going, well, it's not that much more money. It's not that much more money, but we're not even out of this hole yet. We haven't seen the high gas prices yet. I'm assuming by August, it's gonna be $1 higher. What's that do to the police budget? What's that do to the city budget? What's that do to everybody's budget? Where does that fall into our budget that we have? See, we have budgets for a reason.
You can, Tom, I appreciate what you're saying, but you can also think people aren't maybe going to be traveling away to do things as much. And that makes the rec center even more important.
I don't think
Because
people are gonna
people,
go vacation at the rec center.
I'm not talking about vacations, I'm talking about things to do here. People leave, I wasn't talking about vacations, but I understand what you're saying.
Interest rates going up.
I guess that's where my
Lock it in
question-
right now
yeah.
because they're going up. just.
Is
I don't
there
know,
a
it seems like
guarantee
unreasonable
lock-in?
spending.
Of the interest rate, if you start this project tomorrow?
There's no guarantee until we actually issue the debt. And like I indicated earlier, the debt issuance, I mean, if the council says we're gonna go forward with it, it'd be about a September issuance at this point. Suzanne, through her experience and knowing some upcoming rate increases, she believes at this point it'd be about a 4% interest rate, 4.09 is what she had indicated today, but there's no guarantee. I mean, if the Fed decides to do instead of 3/4, 1 and 1, I mean, obviously that's gonna impact that rate. So there's no guarantees to the actual issue.
So even if we would have moved forward with this project back in March, it wouldn't have been issued debt till June, July, so it would have been higher interest rate than what we were initially anticipating on anyways.
Yes and no. I mean, we were looking at, I'd have to go pull it up, but we knew that between, we received some estimates in January and was at 2.49. In February it's 2.69. So there was some in there. Right now, they're seeing debt issuance about 3 to 3.25%. She's anticipating there's gonna be more increases, so that's why she came back at that 4.09%. But it is a educated estimate on her behalf.
I still like the idea of breaking it down, getting the base bid done, doing alternate 1, alternate 2, alternate 3.
You're for the whole thing. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying, at least get the base bid. Put alternate 1 up there for a vote, alternate 2 for a separate vote, alternate 3 for a separate vote. Cause I think we all feel differently on 2 and 3, for sure.
Once again, the motion and the second was for alternate 1,
And the
the base bid, and that's still on the table, because that has not been rescinded. You seconded it,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So is your feeling different about that?
No,
Okay.
my feelings are different on 2 and 3.
Okay,
That's where I'm at.
I wanted to be clear on that, so.
And
And
Dave, you're okay that we can have separate motions on those? Okay.
we would just need to write up a second resolution. Okay.
What I would say is we should probably, if it may be a amendment to yours, instead of a resolution, it's a motion for that. Then we go through motions on the second alternative and the third adult, and then we come back and do a resolution on whatever passes, because it's gonna be too complicated to approve several resolutions for the same project.
Should be cleaner.
It would be cleaner to have one resolution. So if you're okay with that,
Yeah.
That's a good
So
idea.
we're getting at the same thing.
yes.
And once again, a resolution still is gonna take, the majority, at least a 4-2. I wanna make sure everybody's clear on that, so I'm not gonna be in a position to be able to break a tie.
But on a motion,
On a motion I could, but then to follow it back up with the resolution, I would, it's almost pointless. Everybody clear? So we still have a motion and a second to approve the base bid and alternate 1. Is that correct? Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Bordenero,
No.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Schreck,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes,
Base.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, so that motion carries. So we're in business for the base bid and the alternate 1. Now, we want to entertain a motion to add alternate 2 and/or alternate 3.
Okay, we need to discuss on that. On alternate 2 and alternate 3, I would go for ARPA funds only.
are you combining the two? So
No.
there's one motion, are you,
Well, we can do it either way.
I think you separate them out.
Yeah, let's separate them out, but I don't wanna get that repayment too high. And you can use ARPA funds to pay for these, and we've got plenty of ARPA funds, and then you'll keep your yearly payment
Yeah.
doable.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
And the ARPA would expend either 72,000 or 300,000 out of
It'll be
that
both.
fund.
Well, you're gonna vote on both.
Separately.
If there's motions.
Are you, okay.
You
can
want me to make the
con-
motion on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, alternate two are on ARPA funds only for the 72,600.
Second?
Very well, we have a motion and a second to add alternate two, which is in the amount of 72,000. Help me, I just had it here.
600.
72,600 using ARPA funds. Is there any further discussion? Mary, did you have a question?
I do. In that part of the project, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead with the ramp, even if it does take up more space, because even though you might have duplicate equipment now in both places, it can be an inconvenience, as Misty said. And you don't know in the future what those spaces will be used for. And I can witness to you that obstacles in our way limit our options. So I'd encourage you to go ahead with the ramp at that cost and at this time. It seems like the right thing to do.
Mary, how long have you been a rec owner? I say?
I belonged to the rec until I was limited to this chair and participated in water therapy, and it was a wonderful thing for me. And, you know, somebody said once a rec center member, always. Well, people's health changes, and so our needs change. And I think if you can have a facility that can meet different needs, you know, that's what it's about. So, yes, I was for a long time, but now I can't use it.
Thank you, Mary. Any other further discussion?
With this ramp, is this something in the future that they're going to come in and say that we're gonna have to put in if we don't vote it in now?
It's never been brought up.
You know, I would never say never on something like that, but I would say it's unlikely.
I'm just
because once
thinking if
you're-
it's 5 or
once
10
you're-
years down the road, they're saying, all right, you have to get rid of the stairs, throw this ramp in.
I mean, generally, with the building code, once you have an established building and you're meeting the code at the time, they don't make you come into compliance with future changes. But certainly, I would never guarantee the future.
Anything with fire? I
No,
mean,
that shouldn't be an issue.
shouldn't be an issue. Anything else? Still have a motion and a second to add alternate two in the amount of $72,600 using ARPA funds. Last chance. Roll call, please.
Bordenero? Shrek?
No.
Bauer?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion carried. So now you're seeking one more motion to add the West Fitness Rooms.
Alternate three, and what's the price on that? $308,500 using ARPA funds only.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add alternate three in the amount of $308,500 using ARPA funds. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dirks?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Shrek?
No.
Base?
Yes.
Bauer?
No.
Bordenero?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, so there we have it. we have essentially a,
And we should pause for 1 second. You have the right to vote on that. You don't have to vote on that.
I would be a no. Yeah,
Then be a
if
3-4
if
then.
you
Okay.
need to, but yeah.
It still fails.
Okay, so what we have then regarding the rec center is the base bid, which is gonna be the locker rooms, HVAC upgrades, wet classroom, control room, at a cost of 3.4, adding alternate 1 is the raised walking track, elevator, stairs, and an additional, the new air conditioning unit over the pool. And that is in the amount of 2.2 million. And then we are,
No, 2.8. 2.8.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, 2.8, I'm sorry. Yeah, this one, okay. Yeah, I just now noticed it says 2.2 here and 2.8 here. And then we have, we're gonna be adding the ramp for an additional amount of $72,600 out of ARPA. So you got it
So
pretty well
if
wrapped
you-
up.
If you're looking at the resolution, so what I'm hearing is, if you're looking at it, there is a line of base bid plus add alternate 1 and 2 for $6,265,300.
Yep.
So we will put within the resolution in blanks 1 and 3, the words base bid plus add alternate 1 and 2. And then we'll put the dollar amount in blank 2 of $6,265,300.
Correct. And then we don't need to put any memo in there as how we're funding it or anything like
we
that. It's
will-
just the amount.
We'll follow back up
Perfect.
with a I mean, that's a budget amendment. We will issue debt based on using the ARPA funds for that portion of the project.
Okay. Anything to add?
No, but that would be the resolution, I would suggest, based on the discussion.
Okay.
So someone would want to make that.
Yeah, let's make the motion to, for a resolution for the base bid and alternate 1 and 2 in the amount of $6,265,300. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Base,
Yes.
Dirks,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Shrek,
Yes.
Bordenaro,
No.
Seaman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Anything else? We're good on that then, right? Okay. Thank you, everybody. I respect all of your opinion and feedback and work on it. Thank you very much. We found consensus. Okay, item number 8, we have reports. Another biggie. Hello, Randy.
Thank you.
Toss it
Mayor.
over to you. We have wastewater NPDES permit.
Yes.
And go ahead.
I will, thank you. The city's wastewater treatment plant operates under an NPDES permit issued by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. The current permit that's being operated under expired October 31st of 2021. And under DNR regulations, you continue to operate on that permit until a new permit is issued. On May 4th of 2021, there was an application made for a new permit. A draft of that was received on June 14th of 2022, and that's what I've included in your agenda packet. In general term, in addition to that, I've prepared a limitations tabulation that has basically 3 columns. The values, the effluent limits in the current permit, those in the new permit, and then some actual typical values, actual reported values of those effluent limitations. The difference between the 2 permits is highlighted on that tabulation. For the current, I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit with your permission later on some of those issues to try to enlighten you on what they are actually. But moving along, the differences between the two permits are generally a reduction in the monthly limitation on ammonia nitrogen. Now, it's not an extensive reduction, but it's some. A new effluent limitation that has a 59-month compliance schedule for chlorides. And also new effluent limitation for selenium, a 59-month compliance schedule. And one for thallium, which is a new limit with a 59-month compliance schedule. Now, these compliance schedules, the permit, when it's issued, will be issued for 5 years, 60 months. And the reason they put a 59-month compliance schedule is they just want to get it in place by the end of the permit. That's the thinking on it. The DNR's timeline appears to be city comments, your comments by tomorrow. They actually extended that for us. Then it'll go into a 30-day public notice period. The DNR will publish it. They will accept public comment for 30 days. Then they'll issue the permit. They're projecting by September 1st of this year. And then that would put the permit expiration date at August 31st of 2027, 5 years, 60 months. Okay, we have asked Veenstra & Kim, consulting engineer who has performed most of the recent work at the wastewater treatment plant, to review this permit and offer some comments to you. There's certainly surrounded the selenium and thallium being new limits. Actually, they were established based on very limited testing. And so that was one of the in-case comments, was to perform more testing to see where the plant actually functioned in the areas of selenium and thallium discharge. Chlorides, the only sample that was submitted, that was requested by the DNR, was at 325 milligrams per liter, which is actually under the 30-day average that's in the permit. But the plant's current operating permit has a requirement for sampling and testing for chlorides. And just the average for the entire year of 2021 was 403 milligrams per liter. So exceeded that limit. And then the third, V&K suggested that the permit not become effective until we complete this copper BLM that's underway now. And that actually, the sampling will be concluded in October of 22, and then whatever time it takes the DNR to analyze that sampling under the BLM model. But that's where I want to vary just a little bit from the script to try to explain what some of the impact of what some of this is. Actually, there's I think 5 different areas of major concern at that wastewater treatment plant. One is copper, which we've discussed endlessly for the past 5 years. One is the nutrient reduction strategy for total nitrogen and total phosphorus. That currently has a compliance schedule in the permit that's expired, and that compliance schedule is reiterated in the new permit. Chlorides, which I'll try to get into just a little bit more, and then selenium and thallium. Those are the real issues of concern because they cost a lot of money, and that's a lot of money. The copper effluent limits, if you'll recall, were about half, proposed to be about half of what the plant is operating at now. Compliance date is October 1st of 2023, currently under the compliance schedule. For the past 20 months about, we've been collecting data from the streams, both the Drain 77 and the Middle Raccoon River in the vicinity of the wastewater treatment plant, to get site-specific data to determine what site-specific copper limits would be. That's the data collection that will end in October of '21, and then the DNR will run for us a bionic ligand model, a BLM, to determine what the actual limits should be in those two watercourses, as opposed to using overall statewide limits. So a good step the city's making. Hopefully it'll benefit the city by loosening those limits for copper. The second issue, the nutrient reduction strategy, that's a statewide strategy to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus in the surface waters of the state and the waters that flow into the Gulf of Mexico, the anoxic zone in the Gulf of Mexico. We're part of that. And the limit on total nitrogen appears that it'll be about 10 milligrams per liter. The 2021 annual average from testing at the effluent of the plant was about 15.6 milligrams per liter. So the plant is not reducing ammonia nitrogen to the extent that the permit will actually eventually require. Total phosphorus, the nutrient reduction strategy will be at about 1 milligram per liter. The plant is, for 2021, operated at 1.5 milligrams per liter for the average of the 12 months. So the plant is not satisfactorily removing phosphorus. For chlorides, the limit that's proposed in 59 months is 389 milligrams per liter on an 30-day average. And the plant, actually, we don't have any data on the plant operation. But one of the things we have to bring up is that the National Secondary Drinking Water Standard maximum contaminant level that we can send from the water treatment plant is 250 milligrams per liter. So they have loosened it up a little bit for wastewater, but our well water actually ranges from 3 milligrams per liter to just under 30. So we're picking up a lot of chlorides in the use of the water in the system, and then sending it down to the wastewater treatment plant. I take that back. Our actual annual average was 403 milligrams per liter, so it exceeds the limit that's proposed. The source of chlorides in wastewater, there's some minor sources, but the industry standard source is ion exchange water softeners. All of the salt that we dump into our recharge tanks goes out in the wastewater. So the strategies for treatment or for reduction of chlorides in wastewater is source reduction, elimination of ion, sodium ion, chloride ion exchange water softeners. There's also the opportunity for chemical precipitation at the wastewater treatment plant. Once again, these processes are exotic and they're expensive when you're treating 1.6 million gallons on an average day. Adsorption is another possible treatment, oxidation or membrane separation, filtration of it. So these are the options that in 59 months, if there's no compliance, these are the kind of things you're looking at for chloride compliance. Selenium, the effluent limit that is proposed is 5,000th milligram per liter in the wastewater. In our permit application, the selenium values that were submitted based on very limited testing of wastewater, they were equal to 5,000 milligrams per liter. So right on the line there, our drinking water actually is required to be tested every 9 years for selenium. The most recent test in 2022 indicated 1,000th milligram per liter of selenium in that water. But the primary national drinking water standard for selenium is 500 milligram per liter, 10 times more than this wastewater permit would limit it to. So you can drink 10 times more selenium than you can place in the drain 77. Actually, selenium, it has a few different uses. One of those is as a vitamin supplement for humans. And actually, the recommended daily allowance for selenium for us is 55 thousandths milligram, or 55 thousandths milligram per liter. So just about what the drinking water standard is. Once again, 10 times what you can discharge into the drain 77. So their compliance date for that, 59 months from date of permit issuance, currently projected for August 1st, 2027. The source of selenium, it comes from sulfide minerals, iron and copper. Where that is in the Carroll system, we do not know. So certainly one of the first steps will be beginning a system analysis, an incremental system analysis, to see if there's a smoking gun for selenium someplace that's being discharged into the wastewater collection system. That was done for copper, obviously, was the first step in it, and we did not find any smoking gun. It was coming from all over the system. So that's why the next step was that testing, sampling and testing for the BLM model. Actually, selenium contaminates the wastewater from quite a series of sources. It's used in batteries, solar cells, photoconductors. It's actually used in some cancer treatments. In fact, fairly high values of selenium concentrations in some treatments. There is some ag drainage, mine drainage, oil refineries. Once again, there's nothing in that would be a smoking gun in Carroll. So it'll have to be researched or searched for. Treatment options are, once again, expensive and exotic. Adsorption, oxidation reduction, precipitation of the selenium out of the wastewater, solvent extraction, or ion exchange. So they're all expensive processes when you're treating the quantities we treat. And lastly, thallium, the effluent limit is 0.001133, just over 1,000th milligram per liter. And in the permit application, the values based on very limited sampling and testing were 0.0378, multiple times the suggested or the proposed effluent limitation. Actually, in drinking water, the city's drinking water has been tested at 4/10,000ths milligram per liter of thallium. And so compare that to 3.78 hundredths. There's some thallium somewhere in the system between the drinking water and the wastewater. The primary drinking water standard for thallium is 2,000th milligram per liter, twice what the wastewater restriction will be into the drain 77. So you can, once again, you can drink twice the amount of thallium as you can discharge into the drain 77. The source again is from sulfide ores, and thallium is also present in clays and soils and granites in the Earth's crust. So, you know, not much of a smoking gun again in Carroll that you can readily identify. 65% of the thallium that's mined, I guess, is used in the electronics industry, and the balance is used in the pharmaceutical industry. Treatment again is the same, pretty much the same as selenium: adsorption, oxidation reduction, precipitation, solvent extraction, and ion exchange. So that's in a nutshell, that's kind of what the way these exotic limits will affect the plant. I mean, that's what they are, and that's what would have to be removed. So in closing, I guess we have prepared a letter proposing to send to the DNR that includes a summary of what I just said as comments from the city to the DNR. And if that's acceptable to you, we would ask the mayor to sign and send it out over his signature tomorrow. There's still, the city can still comment within the 30-day public comment period on this permit. That can also be done, but the DNR did afford some preliminary comment on this pre-draft before they went to public comment. That's about all I have, unless there are any questions.
Yeah, can you go over that one more time?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, goodness sakes. Yeah, I mean, and I'm sorry to be so flippant about it, because this, you think the rec center is big. This is, yeah, can we go back to the rec center? Let's go talk about that again. But yeah, I've been in on several of these conversations with solid waste, and I got my compadre back there nodding his head, and this is where we're at, bro.
It'll be expensive.
Yeah, I mean, this has to be, if this is happening in Carroll, Iowa, it's got to be happening everywhere across Iowa. And
certainly the chloride is.
Yeah,
And the DNR is really, chloride is one of their front-running pollutants right now.
yeah,
So you're in a catch-22 with chloride. I mean, you got hard water coming in, so you soften it, and now you're
Right.
creating this.
right.
Yep.
Is the unnamed creek, is that drain 77?
It is,
Okay.
yes.
Why do they do that?
We've told them years and years.
We know all about drain 77, don't
77.
we, Scott? Yeah.
But the DNR will only put unnamed creek.
Okay, like they're going to offend somebody. Okay, that's fine. I had to ask. You know, I mean, reading through the letter that will bear my signature, I mean, I certainly don't have any problem with it, but I certainly want to get the council to weigh in on that, for you to approve my signature on it. This is what's recommended, and our only real, you know, opportunity at any kind of recourse begins with this, right?
Yep.
And I know you made a comment, Laverne, and I think it's an interesting commentary. I don't know if maybe Randy, you can speak on it. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but some of these values, like copper in particular, we've been talking about copper for a long time, ever since I've been here. The limit we're facing in copper, frankly, is unique, especially for communities our size. I mean, we have, if not one of the lowest, it's the lowest copper discharge limits in the state of Iowa. And our peer communities just don't have that limit, correct?
There are a lot of them that have no limit for copper, exactly. We have spoken with a few that have a similar limit to ours, and it's frustrating, but they tell us they meet that limit in their systems. We don't know how. They just say, yeah, we meet the limit just fine. And Carroll has tested and tested and tested for years. I think this first showed up not at that value, at the, like the current value, the 0.076 30-day average. Probably 2 or 3 permit issuance ago, so 15 years ago. And we've been discussing it, testing for it ever since then, and just cannot make it. Carroll Water doesn't make that limit. We've done orthophosphate addition at the water treatment plant to help with corrosion in the system, but that's pretty much optimized for water treatment corrosion. And still, you know, we have these values at the wastewater treatment plant.
So it's certainly frustrating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're drawn from the same water pool as a lot of towns.
Mhm.
I don't get it.
Well, yeah, certainly our drinking water doesn't exceed the drinking water limit. But then the drinking water limit is 59 times the wastewater limit.
Yeah, that's what's hard to get your head around.
It is.
There too.
Any other questions for Randy? Is there a motion? The recommendation was to approve the mayor's signing of said letter. Any questions about the letter itself?
Just one, how long does it take to get a response to these questions that are excellent about the discrepancies? Let's-
I am not certain if they'll respond to these. They've opened the door for comments from the city, and they may or may not respond. Now, in the DNR formality, any comments received in the 30-day public comment period, they will respond to. Now, if we don't receive a response before they publish this thing for 30 days, we'll ask that a similar letter be sent for the public comment period to get a response to those.
Good, thank you.
We will seek an answer then of some kind at some point.
Yep.
You can't just, okay. You know what my follow-up question was then, didn't you? But he just answered it, so. Okay. All right, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor for signature of the letter to the DNR. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Bordenero. Shrek.
Yes.
Base.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Okay, item 8B under reports is the Union Pacific Railroad Quiet Zone. And once again, Randy, if you're not hoarse, you can.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
On May 23rd, representatives of Bolton and Mink presented the update final report to the Quiet Zone investigation. At this time, we would like direction on how you would like to proceed or not with that quiet zone. If you desire to proceed, there's fundamental questions that need policy action. First would be if your desire was to have a quiet zone that's qualified or reviewable. And that makes a difference in the final cost and what safety measures can be implemented. And then that leads into the next question. Are there any safety measures or alternative measures at any of the crossings that are unacceptable or that you'd really like to see at that crossing? And then those would be put into the quiet zone calculation. And thirdly, a budget for the quiet zone establishment. So those are kind of policy questions that would be necessary if the desire is to proceed with a quiet zone. And if it's not, is a Wayside Horn project desirable? It can either, actually, Wayside Horn is one of the uses that can be made for a portion of the quiet zone, although it's not in the quiet zone. So I think they were pretty much talking either Burgess or Bella Vista, if that's acceptable, and then narrow down the quiet zone. Or just a wayside horn project that would place wayside horns at crossings. It wouldn't be a quiet zone, but it would be a wayside horn zone. So at this point, we're just seeking direction on your desires for that project.
Very good. Okay, well, once again, this is, the recommendation is just so Randy has some direction from the council on, A, if we want to do anything with train horn mitigation, and if so, what's that gonna look like? And 7 different crossings to consider. The work session that we had 2 weeks ago gave us, some ideas and some thoughts on how we could proceed. They, fell short as far as, making their recommendation on what, that would be. They gave us the calculator and, the options that we could consider. I think, at one point, I believe it was, Laverne that said, let's, if we're going to do this, let's establish a budget, what we're willing to spend, which is one of the questions Randy has. And, whether or not we're going to proceed with it whatsoever. And if not, again, another question would be, do we just want to consider some wayside horns at locations? And once again, the wayside horns don't affect the score in as much as the sound and the mitigation itself. So all of us have heard plenty about this for the last 20 years, and we're going to seek some direction for it tonight. So with that, I'd open it up for discussion, and who'd like to lead that off?
Well, I've done a lot of research on this, many, many, many hours. I've gone to Ames, Boone, Ogden, Denison, and Blair, Nebraska. And you want to pull up some of the stuff. I took pictures of it, different things, and I also did a recording in Blair. I will tell you, you can see these, that's a median in Blair, and it's narrower. It's supposed to be 2 feet wide because their street's narrow. Go ahead. Keep going, that's just another, and there's a sign we'll have if we have no train horn noise, it'll have that sign. Go ahead. And then this is a 2 foot wide, they're 9 inches tall, 2 feet wide. And they'll run 100 feet at the maximum and 40 feet or 30 feet at some places. Next one. That's one, this one I think is in Ogden, so they attach those onto theirs. You can see they're high enough that if somebody wants to drive over them, you're gonna ruin your car. Next one. There's one in Ogden that's been there so long the orange paint's gone. Go ahead. And then this is one, this is actually in Chicago when I was out there. This is what they've done to their center, so you can see it in the wintertime or so. Next one. And then this is another one in Chicago where they had an extra path. Okay? I don't know what that is.
Your A pillar is what it is.
Oops. Next one.
That's it.
Oh, all right, stop there. Okay, this is in Blair, Nebraska, and I took a video. I'm a block away, and I wanted to show what the wayside horns sounded like. Boy, this isn't very good to see. Can you get the volume up higher?
Laura has it set as high as it goes.
Okay, but you can't see it on that red roof there. There's a smaller object, it's a wayside horn. And then what you're gonna see is, I was a block away and the light, the wayside horns come on. When the arms come down and the bell rings, the wayside horn blows, and it blows right on the traffic. And what you're gonna see is that wayside horn blowing. It sounds like a train engine, but 3 blocks away, you can't hear this very well. Where a train engine, you can hear for half a mile away or whatever. So, but as soon as the trains go across the track, that intersection, the wayside horn quits. But what I want you to, we can probably run this a couple times, but what I want you to notice is when those engines come across and the wayside horn's blowing, it's drowned it out. It's almost the same noise as the trains. So go ahead and run it once. It's a wayside horn you hear. So it's done blowing. If you noticed, you can hardly hear the wayside horns with the engines going by. It's about equal sound.
Quick question, does that I thought the wayside horn blew down the track, not out at the road.
No, it's pointed at the road. These are.
Yeah.
Okay,
They're pointed towards the vehicles.
okay.
So, you know, obviously you gotta sit and wait. Sometimes you wait a half hour or more for another train to go by. So I backed up 2 blocks away and you could hear the wayside horns. I backed up 3 blocks away and the wayside horns were faint. You could kinda hear them. Well, then I backed 4 blocks away, you know, and you're waiting for a long time, you know, sometimes, and all of a sudden I look up and there's a train going. I'm like, I didn't hear the horns or, you know. So the problem we're having out on Bella Vista, which echoes all up through this town, that should be eliminated, you would hope. So on each town that I went to, I took the time to ask a bunch of people in each town. And everybody said, you know, obviously they're happy they don't have the horns blowing with the trains. It's a quality of life thing. So with that, I thought, well, how can we incorporate this in Carroll? And initially, I will tell you, when we looked at this a number of years ago, I was not for this at all because these barriers, these 2 feet wide barriers are 9 inches tall. Midwest Wholesale on Clark Street, they couldn't function in there because those semis need that whole road. So, so we either have to make that an open, or we can actually on the south side, on Midwest Wholesale side, we could put like a speed bump. You know, just something to help the vehicles know that they gotta go there, but so the trucks can actually go over. Cause when they come from the north, if there's somebody in there, we actually did this. We hooked up a semi, they did this for me, and we put out a plastic container 40 feet away. And coming out of his place to go north, he could not make that corner. It ran over the plastic. So when semis come from the north with their full load to turn in there, sometimes they have to go on the other side of the road to make it, to get in there, because there might be something in there already. So on the south side of that track intersection on Clark, you can't put anything in there, but we could put a speed bump of some sort to help with some safety, but it won't give you any points. But in the scenarios that I got, you know, I got nothing at that intersection. So, you know, you could look at wayside horns on both ends of town because of farm equipment. They're gonna tear up their equipment, or they're gonna tear up that center median with farm equipment. And then I got Carroll Street, you would have 40 or I think it's 40 or 60 feet on the north side and 100 feet on the south. Main Street, you would have, I think it's 40 feet on the north and 40 feet on the south. And Midwest Wholesale, we actually did this. We had that semi hooked up and we put the plastic barrier, the marker out there 40 feet, and he was able to make it just barely, but he backed up and jackknifed and he was able to make it better. So we could do it there. And then on Clark Street, like I said, 40 feet on the north and the south side of speed bump. And then on Grant Road, you got 30 feet on the north because that semi backs in with their product. And then on the south side, you'd go with 100 feet. And then on Bella Vista, you'd go with the wayside horn. That is, you know, the research I did on all this. Being we had this the last time when we were doing this, it's either it was qualified or denied. Well, we couldn't get anything on qualified to work, but now they put in reviewable in here. And so that reviewable plus this matrix he gave us that we could all experiment with, You know, we can make it work, it's just how much do we wanna spend? And, you know, we can make it work, and the businesses that were initially affected by this won't be affected by it anymore. They're, you know, I've worked with Midwest Wholesale, Culligan and that, and they're the ones that would be affected the most, and they're willing to go with what we did here, or what I was looking at.
Did you say something about Maple? Did I miss it?
No, I didn't say anything about Maple. I would recommend putting a 100-foot barrier on each side of Maple, because once you close an intersection, you can never reopen it, and we don't know what's coming down the road.
Yeah.
Maple came in real handy
Yeah.
latter part of last week.
I would hate to close it just because you don't know,
Right.
you're done then. So it's just, on the calculation that I did, what I just said, it's $751,000. That's the cheapest I could get it to make it safe, you know, and it's underneath the reviewable. If you wanna go into qualified, you know, you're at 1.6 million, 7 million. But, you know, you don't have to do that now because of the reviewable.
And it reviewable every 5 years, wasn't it, I believe? Does that sound right? I think
I
so.
think the reviewable was less, it was like 2 or 3 years, and the
Okay.
qualified
Was
was
five.
5
Okay.
plus, something
Okay,
like that.
backwards
Right.
then, yeah. Yeah, qualified means you're almost
So even-
said and done, right?
Even if we go forward with this, it's a long, you know, we're what, 2 years or more before we even, you know, so, you know, if we're using local option sales tax, you can plan for this, for budget wise.
Laverne, in your calculations that you had, how many of those are the ones that have to come back and, or that has the annual fees?
It would be
60.
Carroll, well, I don't know, Wayside Horns, do they have to be reviewable? Or the whole thing?
There's,
I don't know that.
I don't think they indicated, that Bolton and Mink indicated that they were reviewable, the Wayside Horns. I think there's probably maintenance on them,
Right.
because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
all
yeah.
attached to.
It wasn't that expensive compared to
No.
the quad gates. Quad gates are 60,000 a year for maintenance, that's crazy.
Right.
I don't even know if it
Yeah.
was $1,000 for Wayside Horns. I will tell you, Blair, until I went to Blair, I was still kind of like, not real sure on this, until I started talking to the public and actually seeing this in action with the Wayside Horns. It's like, we got to try and figure out how, you know, because, you know, I live north of DMAC, and if it's a quiet night, you can't have a conversation in your driveway when a train comes by from the east. It echoes so bad. But during the day, you don't hear it much. You know, that's why people are complaining, well, I like to have my windows open at night. And I've heard people in Collison saying it's loud, it echoes out there. It's like it's close to them, so. You know, one of the things with local option sales tax is we're supposed to enhance the quality of life. So this is something you could budget for 2 years out.
Could you pull my computer up real quick? Mayor Wright.
And just to confirm, I mean, if we talk about putting in the barriers like you're saying, the arms still stay, just
Yes.
as we have, nothing gets changed.
Right.
It's just that the horn noise goes away. They just don't blow their horn coming directly through
The
town.
train doesn't blow.
Right,
The Wayside Horns, but our Wayside
Just on the
Horns are gonna
ends.
be way out
Right.
there on both ends.
right,
I was, in Blair, I was downtown.
right. Yeah,
So JJ, to answer your question, this is what your cost would be for a wayside horn. And then your annual maintenance fees are also listed there. So there's the equipment, installation, you have to pay railroad to install it or to interconnect it to their system, and then engineering fees. All in total, you're about $125,000 per installation. And then annually, you're gonna have some maintenance fees with the railroad and then city personnel maintenance fees. It's just, that's time, but it's still a cost you should consider.
And another, I think they told us, the engineers told us these numbers are probably outdated. These are the same numbers they did in their very first. So we can expect
No.
That was the
Slight-
quad gates that were outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah, these numbers.
Because some of these numbers they got from the manufacturer of the equipment.
Okay.
I thought these
I-
were current numbers.
Yeah.
No, I
What-
meant the, yeah, all the, for what you're doing for the ASMs and so
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
They said that their estimates, like at the back of the book where they were estimating, that those may not be current. And so, and they also said that the numbers they have also do not include and this is in their book on page 17, engineering costs are not included in the numbers that they have in the back of the book. So, yeah, the place to start is how much do we want to spend? And Laverne, you did a great job. And I think then we can decide where we want to go. To be honest, for me personally, the trains don't bother me, but we're pretty much divided 50-50 in this town. All our surveys, 50% say yes, go ahead, 50% are opposed, and a lot of it is the money. But maybe Laverne has found a pathway here that we can set a budget and do the best we can to balance needs for this.
One thing you also have to know, if the engineer sees, even though we're a quiet zone, the engineer sees a risk of somebody close to the track or an animal or something, they're gonna blow their horn on the train.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was something in the information that, I had it in an article a couple weeks ago. It's not a quiet zone.
No.
And I think that's gonna be the misconception for a lot of our residents. They're gonna say, hey, I thought, because they can blow their horns for many reasons, not just because of crossing. So it's really should be, we have nutrient reduction strategies. This is a noise reduction strategy, is what it is. So,
Also in Blair, I talked to a number of people in that, and they said the first 6 months, it took a while for the engineers of the trains to realize they could be quiet. They were still blowing until they got phone calls or so. But now, they've been in 7 years now, and the engines don't blow their horns at all.
Yeah, they had trouble initially over in Nevada, if you go back a few years, and they were blowing the horns all the time, but they worked with UP and kind of worked it out on their own, so.
I think a couple of weeks ago, when you had mentioned that calculator, you thought at that time the lowest acceptable solution was about 1.7 at
Well,
that
I've got it
time.
right here. Yeah, but that's to be qualified.
Qualified, and so,
Now they added this new category as a reviewable.
okay, and you think we can get by for 3/4,
Yeah, plus some other engineering fees, yes.
and a little maintenance every year.
And aren't they reviewed, is it
That's what
once
he
a
was-
year, or did you say every 2 to 3
Every
years?
2 to 3.
Reviewable.
Yeah,
I
the
think
review.
they indicated every 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay,
So Blair was telling me, even if we okay this, you're 2 to 3 years out probably. Because they gotta rewire a lot of stuff and the railroad is slow. But, being we have this review factor and we can make it so these businesses in town can operate, and all the interviews I did with people in the towns, I guess I'm willing to try to make this work.
I'm there with you, Laverne. I mean, I've been talking about train horns for years, and talking to other people about train horns, and I mean, even the businesses that moved in or built buildings close to, our depot, and they knew that the train horns were gonna blow, but my goodness, if there's anything that we can do to help you can't order at Culver's when the train's going through. You can't make a bank deposit when the train's going through, and they knew that, but this is a good viable choice. I mean, I know people that are living in Court Street that can't sleep when the train horn is going through, people that are working, night shift and need to sleep anytime, they can't sleep, but they can't even walk downtown and have a conversation when the train horn's going through, so. I like this idea. I would really like it if somebody's not for it, that we could have some serious conversation about it, because I think this is a viable option for reviewable.
And I think we have so much concentrated in a small area that that noise, you know, it affects so many people at once
Well-
throughout our retail area.
All the towns I went to, we are the worst case scenario of everybody. Denison has 2 intersections, or on the south side, they have maybe a half a dozen homes, and that's it. So hardly anybody crosses those tracks. And Ames, they did it to, when they were in that business section, it was on the back side of the business, so the barriers didn't make any difference. But, you know, we've got 5 downtown intersections, plus we got a frontage road at 4th Street. I mean, we got the worst case scenario to try and make this work. And, you know, hopefully this scenario that we got here, we can do that with.
Another problem that came up several years ago, and the owners of the businesses brought up, Culligan's brought up, and that's when that big median, they were talking about the big medians to channel, that because of the width and so on, and then the street, that they would have lost all their parking spaces in front, on the west, on Culligan, but
Parking would have stayed, they would have had a median, you'd had to drive in, but they still would have had all their parking.
Right.
they,
It would have been similar to what our post office is.
they, yeah,
It would
they,
have been a little,
well,
but a little tighter, so they'd have a hard time.
okay, maybe
They'd be
I,
backing up and probably backing into that
they were
median or
worried
close to
about
it. Yeah.
losing their parking, and the same at Rancho Grande. They were worried about the big channel, and, so, and throughout the study, Bolton and Mink mentioned that before we proceed, we need to talk to the business owners and discuss with them any impact, and for sure, we would do that, correct? And that would be a part of the process, Mike.
Yes, I mean, that's,
That's a given.
that would be the next part of the next scope of
Okay,
work. would
okay.
be, We work with the adjoining property. I mean, I know there's been some discussion of what is the cheapest option that we could do. And there's options that are quite frankly cheaper than $750,000. But there's impacts to
Right,
property owners that's
right.
unacceptable. So part of this review process, in my view, is we have to have some meetings with property owners to discuss what are the different impacts, to understand, is there a way forward that everyone can find
Right.
acceptable? There are gonna be impacts. I mean, to say that there's 0 impacts, that's unlikely unless you do quad gates or you do wayside horns everywhere.
Yeah. Well, my concern is that, yeah, we should do that, but the impact should be the least intrusive. We cannot afford to lose businesses, impact
That's the biggie for
their
me.
revenue, et cetera. And so I guess then we would have an open mind and work with them as far as what their concerns are. That is something I'm really adamant about.
And again, there's likely to be some impacts. I
Right.
mean, like short of quad gates and wayside horns, there's gonna be some
Right,
level of impacts.
Bolton and Mink covered it pretty thoroughly, right, right.
But, you know, I think that's the next step, is you have those conversations to find what is manageable.
That's why we hooked up that semi-trailer and demonstrated it. Or, I think they're the businesses that was gonna get affected by it the most, and so we did some scenarios, hooking up a semi.
When you guys had that meeting last fall, before we took office, I remember
Yeah.
it was quite a robust
Oh,
conversation, and
yeah.
those were the 2 businesses that were significantly negatively impacted, but you're
Correct.
believing that they're pretty good with this
I've met
option?
with them many, many times on
Okay,
this.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and Andy Raymakers brought up, it's not only where Midwest is located, we have a lot of truck traffic throughout downtown, and to be aware of the flow of the trucks downtown, so.
Now, Laverne, when you're looking at this on the intersection of Main Street
Where you at?
the Main Street intersection. I haven't pulled it up yet. When you're looking, when you're on your matrix, on your computer, on Main Street, are you, what,
I'm an F.
so which one's that?
That's 40 feet on the north and 40 feet on the south.
Okay, and so,
So you won't have to change Fourth Street.
okay.
If you go any farther than 40 feet on Fourth Street, you're gonna have to move Fourth Street.
One of the reason I'm asking this is, because I want to make it clear, I mean, there's always that potential for impact. So here's your 40-foot and 40-foot. There are some spaces in here that would be impacted by what you're proposing. I mean, I think there's some people that park over here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's gonna be a hard median here.
Right.
Now, the reality is, there's no access technically from this, I mean, this is Union Pacific property.
Right.
So there's no legal access from here, back here. Now, you can get into an alley as you go westward. But you would not be able to get from Main Street back into here. So, I mean, is there gonna be a loss of parking there? Yes, there will be, under this, but it is minimal.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'm-
the other scenario, if we went farther, then the parking in front of Rancho Grande would be gone.
If you
there.
did this one,
Yes,
Can't-
yeah.
it
can't
has
do that.
Yeah, you can't do that.
more draconian
Yeah, you can't do that.
impacts. So, but I just wanna make it clear, there's some impacts.
So
That's-
I don't have your cursor, but go from, like, that's a semi right there.
This right here.
Yeah, and so they pulled out right there and they were able to turn north, but it was pretty tight.
Yeah. Now, to
But
be,
one time you had to do it and you had to jackknife back out, but they're willing to make that work.
now to be clear, that's actually Union Pacific property.
They know that, but
Okay.
they got trailers there.
Yeah, I just wanna make it clear
Yeah.
that,
It
I mean, if
works.
UP comes in tomorrow and.
Well, he actually went a little bit farther south than what those,
Yeah.
they were on south side of the UP and he still had trouble. Those, that's 53-foot trailer and plus the cab.
Now, to be clear, I mean, there's gonna be a hard curb there,
Right.
so there won't be the type of entrance he's used to right now there.
Lorraine, what about Carroll Street, North Carroll?
What was it? It was 60 feet on the north and 100 feet on the south.
What is
Mike's
that?
got it up on the
Oh, I
sheet
said
now.
40. I thought you said 40 on the north.
Well, I said 40 to 60. I couldn't remember, but I
Oh.
think it's 60, is
This
it?
is 60, yeah.
And 100 feet on the south.
Court is,
So that building that's on the south, on the east side, they park on the north side of that, but they can go around that building on the south side
Oh.
to get out, to get in and out.
And to be clear, the
They can
north,
still go north, but they can't go south.
yeah, and to be clear, the north side is actually Union Pacific property.
is what?
It's Union Pacific property. They don't own that property there.
Doing all this study and you get done and then you gotta wait for half hour, 45 minutes, whatever, for another train. There's a lot of wasted time, but
Thank you for doing it.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, the recommendation remains is they're asking for direction on the development of the quiet zone. And so there's no resolution attached to this, but certainly would like some direction on where to go from tonight, right?
Sure.
And so I would throw it back out to the council and see what your wishes are.
I think my biggest fear is gonna be just like, we're 2 years out, correct? So how much are these numbers gonna continue to change over the course of the next 2 years?
Can't answer that.
No,
That's what they were
Yeah.
doing. The hard part about that is, I mean, we've been talking about this for 20 years, and it wouldn't have been this expensive if we maybe would have tried to do something way back when, so
Yeah,
I
but,
just hate kicking the can down the road.
yeah, but not too long ago, we couldn't even really do it in effect business until they changed
Change
the
it to
yeah.
reviewable, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Now
you're
we
right.
can, now we can do it.
I mean, we could do it, it was just really, really expensive.
Well, it would have been harder on those businesses too.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been fair.
So you're reviewable, you put in the horns, and then they review us and we fail. What do they do then? Start blaring the horns again? Just asking questions?
Or re-mitigate.
Yeah,
You know,
there's a period of time
redesign.
that you are given to come into compliance. And so you have to look at what improvements you need to make to go into compliance. And I know when Bolton and Mink was here last time, we asked the question, have you ever seen a community be in a reviewable state and come back out? And the answer was no. Typically takes some major traffic change. It's really gonna be additional trips going across one of those crossings that's gonna trigger that type of change. And in reality, in Carroll, it's probably unlikely to see big traffic generator unless we're growing substantially.
And we're not real positive if they're gonna agree with the initial layout.
Right.
Once they agree with the initial layout, it's pretty well, you don't have to worry about it, is what I'm hearing. But you gotta get that first one and, what I brought up, I'm not even sure, if they'll agree on it, but you gotta start somewhere if you wanna do this. So, if we do move forward with this, are we looking at hiring Bolton and Mink for this? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we would seek a proposal from Bolton and Mink to start working through the next steps.
Okay.
And so there would be a proposal that we would bring back for you guys to consider at a future council meeting.
Okay.
Based on our input to them, right?
Mike, can TIF money be used for any of the cost,
Yes.
or I cannot remember?
We have put the rail corridor in the downtown.
Into the urban renewal,
district,
okay.
So you could, and it's an eligible listed cost in our plan. So
Okay.
you could use tax increment financing to fund the project.
Okay, all of it or just a part of it?
All
or-
of it if you
okay,
want, yeah.
okay.
Including out to Bella Vista and Burgess.
Yeah, I don't know, for me, I'd like to have an idea of what we want to invest in this, knowing, as you said, numbers will change, maybe a range, so that we can apply the different configurations for the crossings. And so we're budgeting ourselves and we're setting, this is our goal, so the whole thing doesn't get out of hand and then it blows up. I think I would like to see us set some type of a range for what we would invest to begin with.
What are you thinking? I mean, in
I'm-
regards to what?
Well, what did you say? Yours came up to 7 something?
Well, but then you gotta, you're probably gonna be close to probably $1 million by the time you do it. You would know those numbers better than I.
I wouldn't even wanna guess because you have, I think the thing you'd have to focus on right now is the construction costs. Because the elements that are really outside our control is the engineering design
Right.
fees, which this is a really different, it's not like a road construction where we can say it's usually X%. We'd have to go back to Bolton and Mink and say what their fees, but then you have the unknown of the UP and what their fees are gonna
Right.
be. So I think the number you'd really wanna focus on is the construction dollars.
And omit potential engineering?
Well,
or
you're gonna
include-
know you're gonna need those costs, but
Yeah,
but I think right now, those are just, we couldn't give you a good number right now on that.
So the 750 included what then? Just the
Construction.
hard-
Wayside
the
horns, then they gotta wire all that in, cause the train's gotta know if it's coming to Carroll and those wayside horns aren't working, they got a signal in their engine, they gotta
Okay.
start blowing their horn.
But no construction costs, or you did have construction?
No, that's
costs?
everything.
Okay, so.
That's construction costs.
Right.
Okay,
That's
so
not
then
engineering.
engineering and
So-
what else would be in there? Engineering and what else? Design, I mean,
So Blair, those center medians, they did theirs themselves, the city, to save a lot of money instead of hiring it out. Cause it's a slab of cement.
Well, their estimates, this is on page 17, engineering fees for the crossing treatments are not included in the estimated construction costs. Neither are any fees to Union Pacific for the quiet zone process agreement or for the agreement for railroad equipment design. So those three things were omitted according to their latest study. I would still like to try and put together the whole picture and guess as to what it would be. Like maybe, okay, construction's around $1 million, you go up to 1 1/4, 1.5. I would not want us going close to 2 at all. I think we can do something that is doable reasonably and make an impact. I'm just, we don't have a crystal ball to know where these things will go.
You know, and it's really hard, I mean, to give an acceptable budget amount when you really don't know all those things. I mean, only really knowing your estimated construction costs, and, I mean, you kind of got to just go by that and then expect that when things come back extremely out of the ballpark, then, you know, we did what we could to try to get to this point for people in town, but you'd like to think that we can make this happen, you know. I'm with you. I don't think I would like to see anything near the 2 million. I would prefer not. I'd prefer to do it as cheap as we can. And I like the idea of, I mean, if Blair did it and they did it by specs, it's not that hard to get someone to put in some concrete. So.
I think what I would suggest, just based on the comments, is we'll go back into Bolton and Mink, have some conversations just to see, you know, what are some typical
Sure.
engineering costs. I can't guarantee we'll be able to provide that.
Right.
Because every community's different, every intersection's different.
Sure.
And then, I guess we'll continue the discussion in a future meeting, likely probably in August, just knowing some scheduling that we have ahead of us. I don't know if there's additional questions you want to get answered right now, Randy?
No, I don't think so.
If that's acceptable, is there other things you want us to look into?
No, I just think my only question would be, are the July meetings full? Is there a reason why you're pushing out, or you just don't think you'll be able to get information?
It's more with staff and.
Okay.
vacations and things. Laverne, would you be interested in maybe sitting in on that? And I'm gonna invite myself.
Another 10 hours.
Yeah, or 12. and
Yeah.
And a lot of that may just be some emails that we
I'll
send.
buy.
Okay.
And a lot of that may be just emails we send back and forth between staff and Bolton and Mink. I don't think we'd have meetings, but if we do, I'd be happy to invite you guys.
Perfect. Is that enough on that?
Yeah, that's,
Everybody satisfied?
yeah,
for now?
sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you all. Okay, we are to item 8C, and that is a nuisance abatement hearing. This was tabled last week. This is at the address of 1027 North Carroll Street. And Deb, acting as Laura, you need to swear in Rick, is that correct?
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give today in this matter is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Perfect. Turn it on over to Rick then.
Alright, so as you all recall, at the last council meeting, I gave an overview of the property, 1027 North Carroll, and the steps that I've gone through with them to abate the nuisance. nuisance, at that property. The issue there is they continually have a different cycle of things. It's always something different. At one point, there was a recliner in the yard. At one point, there was a couch. Currently, there's an organ in the driveway that's been there for some time. So initially, when I sent out the letter, it said one thing describing all of these issues that we had and all of the items that we needed to have them clean up. That's changed drastically since then, and I've been in constant contact with the homeowners to let them know how things are progressing on our end and kind of getting an update from them as well. My most recent contact was with the wife, Kendra Reich, today. I tried calling her to remind her that they were going to be on the agenda to come and plead their case and describe their side of the issue. They declined to come. She says that she was sick and couldn't make it. That being said, that was also the reason for not being able to complete the abatement that we requested, which was to finish cleaning up the yard with any tools or household items that were there. Also asked that the organ be removed. There was a trailer, a utility trailer, that had a flat tire, which they did fix. They did not license it, however, so it's still not registered and licensed or anything like that. It's still sitting in the driveway. So that's kind of where we're sitting with that. I did speak also with Sean Reich on the 23rd as another reminder to kind of get things done, because we did go ahead and table the issue at the last council meeting. I essentially told them that, you know, we were gonna talk here tonight, and this was probably gonna be their last warning. Obviously, you guys have the final say on that, and I told them that as well. So I've got photos from where we started. My initial photos began the 19th of April, and if you could bring that up, Deb.
Document camera.
Holding.
No, the document camera. So, a little like mayor, right?
Oh.
There you go.
So these are the initial photos of the property. Again, these are April 19th. I tried to be thorough and take as many angles as possible, but as you can see, there's all sorts of equipment. This yellow trailer in question is the one that had a flat tire all the way from the 19th of April up until just last week. As you can see, lawnmowers, yard equipment. We had at one point, there was a snow plow blade, all sorts of things. Then this is the front of the house still on the 19th. That one wasn't so bad. There's hardly anything there actually. The 24th of May, not much had changed. After almost a month, or after a month of photos and stuff like that, and me talking to them and working with them to try to get things done. So, as you can see, not much had changed. We still had tools and other items in the yard. Again, this is the 24th. I just took some zoom ins to kind of see, to show everybody like what we're dealing with. I went back and took photos again on June 7th. Essentially, we have a lot of the same stuff, just kind of shifted around in the yard. The front of the house did change a little bit. They've added this lattice work here, and I don't know if that was an attempt to try to kind of clean up the property or what, but that was a positive in my opinion. June 7th as well, they had a vehicle up on jack stands, 2 tires were flat. I've got a different angle of that somewhere, but this was the yard again. That trailer in question still had a flat tire, still unlicensed. Lawnmower in the yard. This is the couch They did cover it with a tarp so you couldn't tell it was a couch, but that was a couch. That's gone. Here's more. This is from June 9th. Same kind of deal, just different angles. This was parked in the yard, it's no longer there, but this is just trying to show you that, you know, this is a cycle. They constantly have this type of stuff going on. June 9th, again, there's that vehicle in question that was up on jack stands. They didn't have tires on it. It is taken care of. It does have wheels on it now. June 13th, more photos. This was when Mike and I had actually stopped and talked to Kendra in person, kind of discussing what we expected from them and how they could further get things taken care of so that way we wouldn't abate the nuisance for them. We simply asked that they take care of the trailer, get the organ out of the driveway, clean up some household items like this mini fridge that were in the yard, and we essentially would kind of back off. To date, this is more June 13th, just kind of showing some more angles, the same stuff. More June 13th, and then today, I went out again, took some more photos. Again, that vehicle is repaired, that other trailer's out of the yard, but there are still random items, like we've got a tire here for one reason or another. The organ is still covered in a tarp, still in the driveway. That trailer, the yellow trailer, you can see doesn't have any licensing on the back. They did, however, fix the tire, so it would be towable if they latched onto it. But as you can see from this middle photo, there's still, and the bottom photo as well, there's still a number of items in the yard that haven't been moved or taken care of, namely, you know, the trailer being an issue, the organ being an issue, and just some other random yard tools and stuff that constantly move around instead of being put away like we asked. So that's essentially the overview of what we are dealing with.
Rick,
And-
can I interrupt just a second?
Absolutely.
When you're seeing these in the progression of your photos, are you seeing like additional things being added like throughout, like the start? Like, are you seeing one week he's got something, a couch, and the next week the couch is gone, but now we have a chair?
Yes. Short answer is yes.
Okay. I mean, and that's pretty frequent, like throughout the whole time?
Yes, he has stated that he cleans out houses or cleans junk houses or something. I'm not fully aware of the details. I didn't want to pry too much on that because that's his business. But yeah, that's what he's told me is they clean out that, so they always have like a rotation of items. The last time I spoke to him also, he claimed that everything was scrap. It wasn't junk. He takes it and gets money out of it from the scrap yard. So that's kind of what we're dealing with there. In his opinion of things is it's not junk, it's his livelihood in one way or another. So I tried to explain to him that city code doesn't quite view it that way and that he's in a very noticeable location. It's a pretty regularly frequented street. I mean, people go up and down it all the time. It's not just one of the random side streets that you're gonna miss. So yes, longer answer to your question is it's always a rotation of different items.
And so his explanation to you a little bit was, this is my livelihood, thus my enterprise. So he's essentially trying to run a business out of zoned residential
That's the
area.
impression I got.
Yeah.
So I guess I did a little bit of research, and yes, I mean, just from what I can find, he does operate, it's called husband for hire is what he does. You are able to hire him via social media, and he'll come clean out whatever you need cleaned out, scrap, whatever. So I mean, essentially what Rick is saying is in the yard is what he's piling from these places he's cleaning out.
Right. Yeah, that's my observations has been he cleans something out and then some new stuff shows back up.
Right.
And he's made significant progress on it, you know, but it's still, I don't think, quite satisfactory.
Yeah, it's just not quite there, and that's, I've been very easygoing in the sense I've tried to work with them and tried to allow them to get things cleaned up on their own. They have been abated in the past, so they knew what was coming potentially, and I still tried to work with them. So all in all, it's been over 2 months from the time I got the initial complaint to the time to today. So at this point, I personally don't feel like we should give them any more time to come up with another reason why they can't complete the task at hand. That's just my opinion.
I agree with you, Rick. I mean, you spent 2.5 months, per se, on this, giving them every opportunity. And it's not their first time that they've dealt with this. So,
What do you do to prevent it from happening a third?
Well, just like Dave said last time, we can go and go I'm blanking, Dave.
Municipal infraction.
Municipal infraction, I apologize for that, but yeah, we can go the municipal infraction route, and essentially it would cost more money ticketing them essentially. And then continue to go this route again, constantly clean up and charge them.
But the
There's not-
municipal infraction isn't gonna make them stop
No.
doing what they're doing, it's just gonna fine them.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, if they pay the fine, I
You can't-
mean,
You can't force them to stop, you're just gonna end up ticketing them, essentially in the end, and racking up a bill. But, yeah. I mean, we could,
Through the municipal infraction, you can get an injunction against them that says you have to stop that action.
Right.
If they repeat it, you can then hold them in contempt.
So you can stop
So,
it.
so there, yeah,
Yeah.
there's more power in that activity or action that you could take against them.
yeah, I was gonna get to that too, but Dave's correct.
That's good to know.
Didn't you say maybe 2 weeks ago, I thought they were looking into a storage facility?
Yes.
And
So
any update on that?
they did claim that they got the storage facility, but I mean, given the fact that nothing's really changed in the last 2 weeks, again, things kind of moved around, but
Right.
nothing really disappeared.
So no
from the
real
site.
bearing on it.
So I have no evidence. They never actually showed me like a receipt or a lease or anything like that. That's again why I told them about the proceedings tonight, and as, to let them know that they should come and defend themselves and give us all the evidence that they have, and they chose not to come.
Okay. Well, I think we've got enough evidence. Is there a motion to proceed with the abatement?
I'll make a motion.
second.
We have a motion and a second to proceed with the abatement of the nuisance abatement that exists at 1027 North Carroll Street. You have a comment? Okay, I'm sorry. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bauer,
Yes.
Ordinaro. Dirks.
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Base.
Yes.
Shrek.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
And
Rick, excuse me,
Sorry, Dave.
do you intend to submit the pictures for the record?
Yes.
So it'll become
Yes, I will.
a record of the council?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Okay, we are concluding with tonight's agenda. We are at committee reports, nothing for information. Comments from the mayor, I have none. Comments from the city council? There are none. Comments from the city manager?
None this evening, Mayor.
So we are seeking a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Base.
Yes.
Ordinaro. Shrek.
Yes.
Motion carried.